Apologies for my voice. I know I sound like shit. I probably look like shit. I certainly feel like shit. I actually turned the comments off on a YouTube video recently because just the level of abuse you get. You don't know anything. People try and misrepresent what you've said or twist your words, and fight community, they're fucking brutal. And my mental health is in the shit right now. So I just don't want to be told a million different ways how much of a twat I am. I hope you understand if I switch the comments off. And yeah, I've never set myself up as Mr. MMA genius. I've just given my thoughts and opinions like a fan. You know, if you want a real fighter's analysis, I'm not a real fighter. Dan Hardy's fantastic. Chael Sonnen's pretty entertaining. There's people out there. But what I am is probably the most known McGregor fanboy, which is ironic because in the last video I criticised his performance, and then I'm called a bandwagon jumper, and it's like you have to be one or the other. You can't just say what you say. You get pinned down as a dick for one reason or another because people just don't like you. But I have had a lot of big McGregor videos. I owe the guy, let's be honest. Like, you know, him bringing eyes to the sport of MMA helped me because I make videos about it sometimes. So, and some of my biggest videos are about Conor McGregor, and I'm a big fan. But all good things must come to an end. And I learned that watching Ricky Hatton get knocked out of Floyd Mayweather. Fucking devastating. When your favourite fighter at the time gets chinned, you're like, oh, fuck. Because to you, they become some sort of fucking superhero. They're living your dream. You believe in them. You get happiness off of their success. There's a connection, you know, that you have as a fan to a fighter. We've all had it. I'm pretty sure Conor McGregor even had it when he was watching Anderson Silva or whatever. But at some point, they all become human, as Anderson Silva did himself. And Conor McGregor looked very fucking human last weekend. And I'm gutted for him. The charisma, the entertainment, the showmanship, the amazing fights he provided over the years, the way he'd go in there and predict what he was going to do and then do it, it captivated the world for a period of time. And it brought him an amazing amount of money and success. But then after that, I sort of spent the last 5 years wishing I could see him fight more and wish he would be the way he was. And I think after this weekend, he probably wished the same. I think he probably wished he'd carried on fighting more because he got knocked out by a man who at one point couldn't get near him and now is knocking him out cold. Even when I was watching the fight live, it's hard to sort of understand fully the way the fight's going, you know, especially when Conor is so technically gifted. It wasn't obvious to me in that first round that Conor was going to lose. And if you're sitting there saying it was, any of you out there, you're probably lying. But even in that moment of that first round, the first time I was watching it, as good as Conor's boxing looked at times, I knew the ferocity and the fire was diminished. The urgency from Conor wasn't the same. Either that he was too relaxed and not taking the opponent seriously, or that the fire he used to have wasn't burning as strong. But there was a noticeable difference the first time I seen the fight even. Now watching it the second time, you can see the building blocks for the Dustin Poirier win were being, the foundations were being laid in that first round. The writing was on the wall. It was just a question of, could Dustin withstand the storm that Conor brings early? Nate Diaz and Khabib both showed if you withstand the early storm of Conor and you make it through that part and you turn the tide on him, he can crumble and he is beatable. And when Dustin turned the tide on Conor, and this was the most shocking thing about this whole fight for me, it was over in seconds. The minute Conor went from being the hammer to the nail, 10 seconds and it was over. When you're a fighter who lives and dies fighting, and you need fighting to provide for your family, when you need fighting to eat, without fighting your skin, you've got nothing. You will keep going until there's not a breath you can take, there's nothing you can do. You'll give everything you can give. How easy it was for Dustin to finish Conor in those seconds that it took once he turned the tide. It's really concerning, actually. If you're a fan of Conor, I'm not putting it all on the money, but Conor doesn't need fighting the way he needed fighting the first time he fought Dustin Poirier, for example. Credit to Dustin Poirier, don't get me wrong. It was surprisingly easy for Dustin to finish him once he turned it. That is the biggest thing to come out of this fight. When looking forward for what Conor does next, how easily he was finished here. That was not the Conor McGregor who had the run and the Jose Aldo, that is mentally, that's not the same man. And a lot of people might sit there and say, you're not a true fan, you're not this, you're not that. A real fan cares about that fighter and doesn't want to see that fighter get beat the fuck up and ruin their legacy and take unnecessary damage and not be able to speak in 20 years' time. And I care about this guy and I don't want him to fuck his whole life up or to end up in that situation. More so than I care about my own entertainment and watching Conor fight every 6 months. So if you think I'm not a true fan or whatever, fuck it, I don't even care. I want to give credit to Dustin. I spent most of my preview talking about all of the things I rated about Dustin, including the variation of strikes which he showed. He kept Conor guessing. It was fantastic work, and one of the main things, the main question for me is, can he take the power of Conor McGregor after he couldn't take it years ago? And not only did he take it, he took it over and over again. The man is a fucking warrior. He is like Mike Bisping type fighter, like into his soul. I've got so much respect for people like him. What a fucking fighter. And the fact that he does it for charity as well, it couldn't have happened to a better bloke. Dustin had really worked hard for this fight. And I think one of the things I didn't give him credit for is that up here, I look at Conor as a genius striker, but the game plan and the homework that Dustin had done, his boxing defense was so much better. He varied his striking up just as we thought he might. He landed the early takedown to drain Conor a little bit. He was disrupting Conor. He was landing on Conor as well. And the leg kick, it was a thing of beauty, and that was the beginning of the end for Conor McGregor, called by Dan Hardy pre-fight. I watched his preview. Dan Hardy is fucking amazing, by the way. Conor looked good early on, and he was landing, but it became predictable. It became too boxing focused. I don't care how good you are. You've always got to have the element of surprise. You cannot be readable in this game. And at times, Dustin read Conor really fucking well. He proved he is also elite. He may not have some of the attributes that Conor has, but he proved he is a fucking fighter and he'll find a way. And that's what he said before the fight. I'm going to find a way to have my hand raised. And that is exactly what he did. I really didn't expect to see Dustin at times using slipping and the head movement and the footwork he did to take the edge off of Conor's stand-up and make him less effective. After the way he took shots off Hooker, I didn't think that was going to be possible for him to implement. But my God, the work they must have done before this fight. They earned this win. On the flip side, we were hearing all about Conor McGregor's old boxing coach coming back in to build him up, make him even better at stand-up. I was expecting big things. I've seen basic mistakes, not stepping in with his punches at times. Conor thinks he's so good, because he is, that he can break the rules, and that's fine. He puts his chin in places where other fighters would never be able to get away with it. But back in the day, he always did. He didn't this time. That check right hook from Dustin Poirier let him know, you put your chin in a suicidal position with me, pal, I'ma fuck you up. You can't do that with me. It was careless. It wasn't quite as bad as the Nate Diaz 1 fight, but it was similarly careless at times. The lack of respect for Dustin was punished. And Conor's timing, his accuracy, his footwork, the things that we expect to be fantastic, because that is his best attributes in the past, he did not look the same. Don't get me wrong, there was times he still looked good. He was landing, but it wasn't the same. There was times he was looking he was swinging and hitting thin air, man. Multiple times. He looked rusty. And that may be ring rust, but still, I say what I say. He did not look as good as he used to. And when we were told beforehand, you're going to see a new and improved, no, we didn't. No, we fucking didn't. We've seen Conor not checking the leg kicks properly, not adjusting to the problem he was having in the fight. He just kept making the same mistake over and over and over again. And Dustin just kept smashing that leg. And just when you think he's going to smash the leg, it's a jab. It's a cross. Back to the leg. Like it was masterful from Dustin. And Conor throws 2 shots that miss completely thanks to the head movement of Dustin Poirier. And Dustin comes back over with that right hook, smashes Conor's jaw, and then he smells blood, and seconds later he's over, he's finished. And I guess the question is why is a guy who couldn't get near you a few years back smashing you to fucking bits now? One of the reasons is I think Conor underestimated Dustin. You know, he had an easy time with him last time. You see him in that first round back in the day when he smelt a bit of blood, he'd be on you, increasing the pressure. He was treating Dustin like, nah, it's a matter of time, I'll keep landing, it'll come. I said before the fight, fight. Every second that goes by, Dustin grows in confidence. And that's why you see him when Dustin was landing, he was pointing it out. He was saying things. He was gaining in confidence. You can't allow that. And he allowed it. And the Dustin's fire grew stronger with every second. And you look at the pre-match press conferences where he's saying, yeah, I'd love a war, but this is going to be a smooth one for me. No, the war came, pal. The war fucking came. And you weren't ready. One other thing that came was money. Since the last fight, anyway, Conor McGregor's lifestyle has changed massively. And this doesn't always change how a fighter performs. Plenty of fighters have been rich and carried on being successes, but it is harder to be the same person when you've gone from struggling to make ends meet on the welfare, as Conor was, as we know, to having £100 million in your bank account. You are not the same man. You cannot be the same man. It's about how you adjust. And I can't say I would have done any better, but Conor McGregor did not adjust as well as some have in the past. He clearly lost his way. He didn't fight anywhere near the same amount at all. Since Conor McGregor won the lightweight title against Eddie Alvarez, he's had 3 fights in the UFC and he's lost 2 of them. In that same time, Dustin Poirier has had 9 fights in the UFC and he's only lost 2. You can be as talented as you want, but hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And Dustin Poirier is fairly fucking talented too. Do you know what I mean? You can't let these lads be outworking you and then think you can just go in there and it'll be the same as before. He's brought this on himself, man. Against Nate Diaz, there was things we could say as Conor fans to make ourselves feel better after he got beat up, always last minute, he moved up in weight. Diaz is so tall and rangy, he needs to practice with some sparring partners. Things can change in the second fight, and they did, but we ended up doing the same thing again for Khabib. He wasn't mentally right. A focused Conor, and he might win that fight. The foot injury. We told ourselves things. These are things I've told myself. I got nothing for Dustin. There's no excuse. What were you saying? You beat him years ago, pal. There is no reason why you shouldn't have beat him. You're the same height, reach, weight, everything's fair. You were the best you've ever been coming in. That's what you said. You just got the fuck kicked out of you. This whole thing about Conor is that he's the best in the world. That was his thing. When you've lost 3 out of your last 6 fights, and 3 of them were by stoppage, 1 being a knockout, you're not the best in the world anymore. That is just facts. Everyone has to accept that, especially Conor McGregor. It's the truth. This reminds me a little bit of the Rockhold defeat to Bisping. Rockhold was the champion. He seemed to be a dominant fighter who was going to be around for years and years to come. He fought Bisping, who he'd beaten before. He took him lightly, and he got knocked clean out. And when he got knocked out, he was never the same again. And that might be the case for Conor McGregor. Obviously, you don't want that. It's a very real possibility here. Conor built his career, obviously the showmanship, the razzmatazz, the confidence, the cocky lines, but it was all backed up by the fact that, like he said, no one could take that left-hand shot. Well, guess what? Someone just took that left hand over and over again and kept on coming at you. That changes everything. You can't Billy strut when you're the one getting knocked out. Conor McGregor is still a great fighter, but the aura that he had of the touch of death and one touch on that left hook, it's all it takes. It's gone. He's been made to look more vulnerable and beatable than ever in his entire career. And every UFC fighter will look at that and smell blood. The fear's gone. The magic that he created when he used to predict what would happen, and then it would happen. He predicted a 60-second win. He got knocked clean out, man. The fear's over for other fighters out there. And the fact that Dustin Poirier has landed a blueprint to how to beat him, you weather the storm, these are the things you can do. It's going to make it more easier for it to happen again. We were told that Conor McGregor was going to be at his best. They were talking about the Eddie Alvarez fight and a repeat of that, talking about 60 seconds. He doesn't make it out of 60 seconds. When you're talking like that and then you go in there and you get knocked out, your whole career has been built up off of the fact that you were one step ahead of the opponent. He was always able to predict what was going to happen. He had a read on the opponent. He was one step ahead of them. But now he's so out of touch with the reality of what that fight was going to be. It proves that he is not the same person he was. And that is a result of not fighting enough. But does that mean that if he goes back and starts fighting more, that it'll come back when you've been destroyed and you've been finished 3 times in your last 6 fights? At the time when all of these losses had happened, it didn't feel that way because it was taking so long for him to get back in the cage again. And you'd see him on fucking YouTube or Instagram flashing his watches and being the baller, and he was still winning at life. So it was almost like he didn't really lose because he got submitted. But now with that knockout, it's the full stop. You keep getting getting finished. And when a fighter keeps getting finished, I'm not talking about losses, you can lose, but when you keep getting finished, it is a sign that you are in decline as a fighter. And that is the facts that we're talking about today. It's not whether I'm a fan of McGregor, it's not whether you are, you hate him, you love him, it doesn't matter. He keeps getting finished. In terms of what should happen next, as a fan of McGregor, I'm conflicted. You know, you have a think about the good times and the old days, and you think, oh, what a rise it would be for him to come back from this, and you know, he really starts training again and everything goes well and he maybe regains a title. From a personal point of view, it would be great to see, and the entertainment of it all would be fantastic, but it's not my body on the line. I think a true fan does not want to see a fighter go on too long and take too much damage. I think of what happened to BJ Penn in his career, who was also viewed as one of the great lightweights, and in the end it was sad. He was just getting beat the fuck up all the time because he couldn't let go of fighting, because it was all he'd ever known. And McGregor clearly loves fighting, even though he's been in and out of the game in the last 5 years. I would understand if he gets in there again. He's a fighter in his heart, clearly. But if he gets finished again, it's important that he doesn't go down the BJ Penn road and he does look at what he's got. Because in a way, this knockout could be a blessing to him, not as a fighter, but as a man. John Kavanagh, his coach, always talks about we win or we learn. And I think this isn't just a fighting lesson, but it's also a life lesson of Conor McGregor may have come to that point in his career where he is not the same man anymore. And it happens to every fighter. Mike Tyson, all of them have had it. You become human at some point. And you've got to hope that when that day comes for you, you've got all the money. Your family are secure. You've got your health. You're set for life. And he's there. So if he isn't going to be the champion again and he goes back in there and he comes unstuck again, then hang it up. You're making fucking tons of money out of whiskey, and although he loves fighting, and I'm sure it would be a heartbreak to give it up for him, if you're not at the level that you used to be and you fight fighters like Dustin Poirier, this shit is going to keep happening. If Conor does fight again, I think we'll learn a lot. To call it quits after Dustin may be a bit hasty because he got beaten by a hell of a man. But if Conor fights again, that's when we'll get the full answer. It could go that way. It could mean retirement, but if he comes back and he looks back to his best and it was a case of ring rust, then maybe we might get the old Conor back, but I'll be surprised after what I've seen, after how quickly it went when it turned on him. I want to give credit to Conor McGregor though. The guy has provided me with so many entertaining fights, entertaining moments. He's given me a lot of views on YouTube, for which I'm grateful for. He's an inspiration to many people out there who start a journey with nothing and a dream. And he achieved that dream. And if he walks away now, he walks away as the richest MMA fighter ever, and a man who put more eyes on the sport than any other fighter. Love him or hate him, those are facts. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.
This is just a warning.